On to number, well, we can start it back to number 1. Heartland Alliance, the old business from last week. What we're going to do is continue the discussion that we had at our last meeting about the issues with housing on Tree Lane. Would you, I'll start with Wanda, would you like to come and speak to? Yeah, you can sit down. 3 minutes to give your speaking in opposition to the, what? Go ahead.
So I'm here advocating on Tree Lane. Who lives there? Anybody here live there? Anybody here visited there?
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So a lot of people on the outside looking in. We need the people on the inside that will look out, right? So one thing that I see is too many police. When I see a lot of police, it scares me because I'm going to see a lot of dead black bodies. Okay? So we know that police, they have a part to play. But the police, your police in Wisconsin are doing too much. They're in everything. They want to be mental health specialists. They want to be counselors. They want to be civil, working with landlords, tenants, everything. Now they want to do community policing after hours, getting paid overtime. To do community policing, like really? Let the community leaders work with them, paid community leaders, work with your overtime police officers. One thing, most of all, the majority of your police officers are white. They are oppressors to those that look like me. And to see them after hours, no, we don't want to see you after hours. We don't need to pay you overtime to oppress us, continue to oppress us. One thing about Tree Lane, too much money is being spent on police. Police should have never been a part of a Housing First project from day one. You want a public safety building? You got it, Tree Lane. Because those people there are in prison. The way that they're being treated, their civil rights are violated. And we talk about Martin Luther King dream, and you did your ceremony, and this is Black History Month. Do not celebrate it until you dismantle your white system that oppresses black people. Take your signs down, your streets. Martin Luther King dream is not a dream. It should be a reality 50 years later. Wisconsin, what are we doing? Don't take us back. Don't take us back. There's so much pain there. And I hear the cries of my people. That's why I'm here. I sacrificed. I cleared my schedule to be here and sit at the table of those who can make the difference. And the majority here are not even the people who even have a clue about how it is to be without. And you make decisions and you oppress people of color with all of your policy and procedures that are written by white people. Your system needs to be dismantled. There are people that need to be in the table that look, not just one person representing the whole black community. You gotta have at least 10 coming to the table, representing the community that the people live there need to represent. The people that represent Tree Lane need to look like the people that live there.
Thank you very much. And other speaker, Mr. Brown.
Hello there. My name is John Brown, and I'm familiar with a lot of things that go on like Tree Lane Apartments because I came from the projects, and I'm one of the guys who sold drugs in those projects. And them projects put me in a state of mind that I did over 20 years in prison to get to this table. Because the behavior I learned in them projects for being so compressed like that, and we made a right out of it, it condemned everything I'm about. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not at this table. I don't want to be at this table because I'm not there. Okay, I understand Tree Lane. I know 60% of the people there, we smoked dope and we lost ourselves. And now when I got out of prison, this is what I see. We had officers that was truant officers when I came up in the 70s. They chased us on the street when we skipped school. They brought us back to school. When I get out of prison, I see that everything that I had a chance to get out and say, I'm going to make a difference, have been blocked out. I have did investigations because I'm also civil rights. And I have found that the DOC have merged with UW, everything. How did they get out their jurisdiction? And how do I know what I know and you the ones wear the coats? This have been my rude awakening. That this is not a game. This practice is killing people because we can't speak outside of it. When you see they dying. I did not wake up to see us sitting at this table give a lot of bite for what it is when we know we all in wrong. Because you do not walk past and see America on the ground and you walk past like he's not there. Then you go home and tell your son to be something. When he see that you nothing. Because you can't explain what you just walked by. 10 years of that, we all would be blind. And that's what I come to the table to say. I have put a proposal in for Tree Lane Apartments. I have a team so big in Madison. I have many of these people at this table know me. And those are my people and my own psychedelic understanding that I have came to this table to break out of. So I know what treated me can treat them. Because it's not about white against black. It's not even about colors. Because many people I saw in position is black. Every service kicking people on the street. Even kicked me out my mama's house. When I told them I was born with her, I would leave with her. Where is God in that? Because when I act out, you come. And you're not my enemy because anyone can call the police. My baby mama did it on me. Strangers did it when I broke the law. When I sold dope, they called it on me. So I know the DOC going to call you when I act up with them. Because that's double jeopardy. I paid for my time. How could I be on the braces right now? But I figured that out. That's why I keep it. Because I got an alibi for that too. You see? So I'm not at the table with many people like this. Because I can make that community move. Because I have before. If you check my record, you should know who I am. But I did not come to this table in a situation that when I go back from this table, that this situation going to be over. Because if I can't get to the point of being righteous in life, I'm going to do it how I used to do it. Because I'm not going down on this watch again. My daddy and everybody dead. They never got a chance to see me wake up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I'm the one that did put the proposal in. But I can never talk in public because what I've been through, it condemns me that all what I say is a lie. So that's why my behavior like this.
Have anyone else that wants to speak to them?
How you doing, man?
Questions of the speakers? No?
Question to the first speaker. I didn't catch your name and who you represent.
I am representing Peace Network Inc. It's as a community leader, organizer,
I'm
activist.
sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
I represent Peace Network Inc. as a community leader, advocate, activist, advocate.
Are they based in Madison?
Yes.
And she's registered as representing that group?
She did not list.
So are you speaking as a representative of the group or as an individual?
I'm speaking as a representative for the community, for the people that live in Tree Lane. Matter of fact, for the people that live across the Greene County, the state of Wisconsin.
You live on Tree Lane?
No, I don't live on Tree Lane. I have friends that live there and sent me to advocate and talk to them.
Any other questions about?
So how do you want me to fill that out for you?
I'll be talking.
Okay.
Emily will handle that.
Could we know the name of the individual?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was Wanda Smith.
Wanda Smith, thank you.
Thank you.
And John Brown is the other speaker.
Right. A lot of them asked me to speak because they're afraid to lose their housing, so they didn't show up today.
That is the truth.
That's, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, so the conversation that we had started last week when the captain from the West District was here and we were discussing statistics. Paul, do you want to lead the discussion of this? Otherwise, Gloria is here and I was going to have her talk about
I would prefer if Gloria and or Jennifer would
Okay.
lead the discussion or start the
Sure.
discussion.
Yeah, I would just, I'm going to bring them both up. But just to follow up from our last conversation, you had a lot of questions about Community Development Division, about Heartland, and then now we brought Attorney Zillaby on to attend here today to speak about the recent nuisance abatement. process, because I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of questions about that. So yeah, I think Heartland could not make it today. But if you have specific questions, just send them over to us and we can get those clarified, or I'll take some notes about specific questions that you have. But they will not be here tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and have Zillaby and Jim O'Keefe on board.
I guess since last we met, have there been any changes in the situation on Tree Lake since our last meeting? I'm sorry, you weren't here, I guess Gloria was. Anything that has changed or any new initiatives or what?
So we have spent a lot of time engaging with the residents to ask them about, what they need, get their perspective on living there. The mayor met with them last week. City staff have repeatedly met with our residents. We heard them. There are some policy changes that they are recommending. One of the big one that we've been having challenges with is the visitor policy. So we are currently reviewing that. And they want more activities, make it more of a home environment for them. And having residents plan those. We have a Valentine's Day event tomorrow night that a resident is planning. So getting some positive activities happening within the facility. They also expressed their concern that the media and others have portrayed them as being homeless, and that being a homeless facility. They say they pay rent and that they should not be, identified as that. And they feel like it's just isolating them even more from the neighborhood. And so the mayor is currently meeting with media outlets to express the concern from the residents about changing that narrative and changing and identifying them as homeless. We have also put together we're working on a communication strategy plan to ensure that we are communicating with the residents internally on a regular basis and also in the neighborhood. And so I think, nothing to celebrate, but I think because of the work that we have been doing at Tree Lane, calls for service have gone down for the last 2 weeks. And so that's positive. We're seeing a positive trend. That usually happens. You can see that when we went in November, the calls went up, and that's expected. But over time, we are seeing that the calls for service are going down, but we need to continue to spend time there and focus our efforts and bring everything, all the resources needed to that facility. We put together a security resolution that we talked about, I think, last time, and a supportive services resolution. Those will be coming to the council, is it next?
26th.
26th. And so the supportive services is really robust. We really want to, we have been focusing on security, really piping that up, right? And enforcement of the policies. But over time, it's very temporary. We don't want to spend significant amount of time and energy in that way. We want to beef up the supportive services so that the calls for service will go down. And that's the idea. And so I think it is really about getting the residents to the point where they are able to enforce themselves, the policies, support them. But it is also protecting them too. In moving in there, we had people coming in there, taking advantage of our residents, causing a lot of disturbances. And we had to do whatever we could to protect them. And so that's why the increased enforcement. I think that our residents are to the point where they can actually feel safe enough to talk about what they want and feel like they're being heard. So a lot of moving parts to this process, but I think with the transition of the Y, I know we talked about the YWCA leaving, right? There's that transition, so the road home is coming in on a very temporary basis until we are able to get an RFP out for organizations to submit their proposals and figure out what kind of collaborative we can fund. So the road home is currently somewhat there. They are meeting with the YWCA. They have met with Heartland, but they will be transitioning in soon. And Jim, what's that date?
March 15th is the date at which the YWCA is scheduled to depart.
Yeah. So, but, you know, there are still some issues. There are a lot of issues there, and that's why we felt that we needed to do the nuisance abatement. And I'll have Zilby talk about what that process looks like. Yep.
So the nuisance abatement is the chronic nuisance premises ordinance that we're using. The declaration letter went out to Heartland last week. They, of course, are aware of it. They were aware of it before they received it. And the way the process works, once they get the letter, they have a 10-day period within which to schedule a meeting with the police department and myself. They are supposed to come to the meeting with an abatement plan that they have formulated. We will meet and discuss that abatement plan. Usually, in the course of this process, well, the norm is the individual who received the chronic nuisance premises declaration meets with us, and they typically don't have anything. They don't have an abatement plan that they have thought up and brought to us, and so then we work with them to come up with an abatement plan. I know that Heartland is going to be drafting an abatement plan that they will bring to the table, and then we will discuss it and discuss what issues the elements of the plan are intended to address, and I would imagine that we will come up with other elements to the plan besides what Heartland proposes. After that meeting, then the expectation is that Heartland will implement the strategies that are in the abatement plan, and as long as they are implementing those strategies and working in good faith with us, then the cost recovery provisions and the municipal ordinance prosecution provisions of the ordinance will not be utilized. And then from that point on out, it's kind of a monitoring process and likely revisiting the plan and seeing what's working, what's not. Do we need to tweak some things? Do we need to add some things? But the elements of the plan, the focus is to abate the nuisance activity at the property, or at least dramatically reduce it. And the elements in the plan will be hopefully designed to do that.
So what kinds of things would you expect to see in the abatement plan, or would be looking for in the abatement plan?
Strategies for visitor policies, for how specifically that's monitored, security, the expectations for security in terms of when they're on the premises, what they're doing.
The establishment and application of consistent protocols and procedures over different aspects of property management. I think you've heard that that a primary concern has been controlling who enters that property, who's on the property, establishing a process whereby folks that are not authorized to be there can be prevented from being on the property unless they have, unless they're there at the invitation of a guest, or unless they've been a source of disruption or problems previously. So that has been, I think, a major source of most of the issues at the property that have caused safety and security concerns for many of the families, many of the residents at Tree Lane Apartments, and in some cases have spilled over into the surrounding neighborhood.
So it sounds like that, I mean, I've only heard, I mean, not to minimize that, because I can see why it would be an issue, but I've heard only about visitor problems or issues. Is that pretty much cover what the concerns are, or are there?
Well, from my
other
perspective, the overall management of the property is a big issue. So the importance of having a manager who is strong, who knows how to manage, and also somebody who can relate to the people who are living in the building and have a relationship with the people who are living in the building.
And so how would that be articulated in an abatement plan?
That part I'm not exactly clear on at this point. I don't know if you...
I think the idea of having a clear policy with respect to how somebody gains entrance to that property.
Again, that's visitor.
Yes.
Visitor.
Yeah, I think this is
And
gonna
I was
look.
just wondering if there was anything beyond
Yeah.
the visitor.
I think this abatement is gonna look a little different than the other, the historical abatement process that we've gone through, just because we strongly believe that the supportive services is going to be a critical component. Not only the supportive services, but also the training of the property management staff to be able to de-escalate situations, make sure that we are making residents accountable for policy violations through, doing the enforcement, but also doing it with compassion, right? I mean, and doing it where, there's trust in that relationship. So I strongly believe within the abatement sort of instructions, we're gonna have that component of ensuring that our property management staff are trained, they're culturally aware, culturally competent, and can interact in de-escalating situations, and also deal with stressful situations, right? When there are multiple situations happening all at the same time. And I think the training is going to be a huge component, and experience. And being able to collaborate with other partners, this is a very unusual, it's different, right, than just a property management. You can't just property manage the apartment complex, right? It is about working with different organizations and collaborate and build that trust with them as well. So that's going to be a huge component in the abatement process.
Thank you.
So you already mentioned about the different procedure the site is visiting, about also you want to make sure the people, management understands. So it's more sound like this plan is like standard operational procedure, like SOP for any building or business. My question is this, in this particular abatement plan, are you guys also going to provide social training to management, like how to deal, because that's what you said, like we want to make sure they are socially aware, but is there any, also this procedure, are you going to have that policy of training too?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think as part of the abatement. I mean, I'm not sure how we incorporate that into, what we need for property management.
Right.
But that would, I think that that is a huge component of
Right,
this.
if those skills are missing, is that going to cover that, giving them also training?
Well, I don't know of giving them training, but
Yeah.
that's what we would want to see, is that they have somebody who is trained appropriately.
And what is the timeline?
There really is no hard and fast timeline. These things frequently take some time to work. And at this property in particular, there's a certain, what's the word? There's a certain, atmosphere at the property that needs to be jolted a little bit, and that takes time. I think with the management that is there now, there hasn't been a lot of holding people accountable for things that help a community to operate smoothly. And I think, that changing that environment at the building will take some time. That, when people are going to be held accountable for rule violations and learning how they need to live, in the building.
There isn't a sense of community in that building. There isn't a sense of trust between residents and property management that I think needs to be there for that property to be successful. And so that's going to take some time to build, clearly, and that's part of what the abatement process will be about.
There's a Housing First initiative on Rathke, am I right?
Yes.
And is that a Heartland
Yes.
directed project also?
Yes, it is.
But yet it's having a totally different
Well, it's also a
experience.
different type of property. There's no families living there. So in a sense, it's really dramatically different from the population at Tree Lane. And that property did have some hiccups initially, and they,
Resolve them?
yes. And I believe they just recently hired a new property manager for that property.
I'm not quite sure how to ask this question, but you've been, in general terms, describing the kind of staff you would like to see present there and the kind of training they should have. Can you describe where you're going to be looking for those people? Is there, for example, are there people who live in Tree Lane that may be eligible for some of those staff positions? Or would you go to MATC or some other place that trains people for that kind of work? Where are we going to go to find these very talented, very sensitive, very strong people that you think are needed? Do you have hope for that?
Well, in terms of the actual property management, that's Heartland's responsibility to find that person or persons who are competent to manage that property. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but there was some discussion about residents and residents having a role at the property, and in what way, shape, and form.
Yeah, I think we have some strong residents there who are able to, who have demonstrated some leadership. I think we need to put more services towards them and invest in them so that we get them to the point of being able to get them into a position like that. But I could see, in the future that we do something like that. We have resident managers at our, it's a different apartment complex, but Northport Packers, for instance, right? So that is an option that we're looking for moving down the line, but I think we do want to assist Heartland in hiring, or into looking and training and, for opportunities for that. So we definitely, that's their responsibility to, hire and train their staff. But we definitely want to encourage and provide some information of where they can look locally.
So let me speak for a few minutes. I've heard from the public, from everybody here, and I think the most important thing, let me use this example. Everett Mitchell is also the pastor of my church. He actually had me read a book by James Cone, and it was basically speaking to people in a way that they can understand. Their cultural, and another example, I used to help out at a church, and they said, Charles, we can't get these kids to settle down. I came in there and I said, hey, you don't put your foot up on your mom's, furniture at home. You don't do that here. I understood. I said this to say this. We must get people, whether it might be, even Gloria, she had helped start the Amigos in Blue. So as a Spanish, Latino, getting into the Spanish community, police officers getting together, we need also that in the African American community. We don't have that. Also, too, the staff members. I visit Tree Lane and heard from a lot of people, seeing the resources. We need black people to be able to reach other black people. So the people at Tree Lane that are currently there must be able to be African American to reach the African American. The police officers that come into that community, you must have other police officers. And I said that, and I hate to call you guys out like that, but officers from a school told me this the other day, and it really put a burden on me and said, if we don't catch them in the streets, we'll catch them at school. That had such a burden on me, like, wow, these kids are going there for education. We must have other African American officers and people that know the resources come out and reach people. As long as we sit here and we say people are violating, we gotta have people be reprimanded, we gotta take that statement away, and we gotta say a statement saying we must have people be able to reach these people. You cannot reach people, you already know that they might have a situation, they might have a problem, so therefore to get somebody in there to be able to reach them. I know that I see the resources there, but you gotta have other African American resource people to reach them. And this goes from higher up all the way, because I don't care who you are, you gotta be able to reach certain people on their level. And their level meaning African American reaching other African American. It's very, very important. And I don't blame anybody at this table. Other leaders need to step up within the department that are African American. Whether the leaders in the community need to step up and say, look, if they got the Amigos in Blue, why can't the African American get a police system to be able to reach African American? That's why I hear about the oppression that people feel oppressed. That's my piece, but I think it's a very important thing that we must do. And it doesn't, after today, I'm actually going to go probably out to Tree Lane and see what kind of resources everybody's talking about. Because when I visit there, I'm looking around, I'm seeing 1 or 2 tenants, and I'm seeing everybody saying, oh yeah, this is what, So I'm really curious to see what are you guys going to implement to be able to reach with this new system. And I'm glad that you guys are doing that, taking over. But what are you going to do to be able to reach them? Not about buckling down on the rules or the violations, but to be able to have it more of a home. That place is not a home. And what I've heard and what I've seen myself, it's got to be able, I don't care, I'll come out there myself and knock on doors and try to be able to reach and say, okay, how can we all come together?
Did you want to, just a minute, sir?
Yes, I
Go
do.
ahead.
To kind of get back on point, on focus, what you're talking about is a nuisance abatement action. And that is brought against the owner and manager of the property, not the tenants.
Correct.
We're not talking about the tenants here, and, you know, there are times I'm reminded that no good deed goes unpunished. You know, this was a housing first project that we went into willingly, voluntarily, and I know that we went into it with the best of hopes. And Jim can talk about the aspects of how Heartland was selected. But to be very candid, I believe that they're the root of the problem. It's a management or poor management. And that we're talking about how should this property be managed. There's another property on the other end of Tree Lane that used to be a problem that is now managed by a different management company, Meridian. They're doing a great job. They had a situation where they had a neighborhood officer there before they got in, and they basically put in a structure which has, there are very few calls for service, not even on the police radar screen, from what I understand. Last month, Captain Patton was here to talk about hundreds of calls for service, averaging a couple a day. Officers are not going to Tree Lane to cruise around to look for people to arrest or harass. They're there because there's a disturbance, there's a weapons violation. Somebody's banned and is not leaving. There are issues. Those are documented, and that was part of the nuisance abatement. The abatement is about how to end the threat. The resolution to provide additional security is not to provide additional police officers there, but private security to maintain order within the facility to manage the rules. This is not looking at doing anything that's out of the ordinary with any other property. This is obeying the rules of your lease, is basically what it is. And this is a process to get it back on track. Once it's back on track, as Jim hopefully will say, that the support services will be stronger and provide the services necessary and desired by the people that live there, so that, you know, the nuisance abatement will no longer be necessary. You know, but I do feel that this got out of hand, and we're here because of the calls for service and the extraordinary number of calls for service. Let's not forget that this is now the #1 property on the west side of Madison in the West Precinct, #1 calls for service in that district. It's also #2 in the entire city, second only to Merida Hospital. So that's how many calls. That's way too many. That's way too many hours being spent by police officers. They've got better things to do. I know Captain Pat will spend, he told me yesterday, probably 50% of his time dealing with managing that property. So to get back on track, this is about not punishing the residents who live there. That was the goal of having this property in this location. I still stand by it, but it needs to be brought under control. You know, the activities there, it's the behavior, it's not the people, it's the behavior. And it's not primarily, I would say, that the people that live there, it's some of the guests and some of the people who feel that they can come in. There's a lot of people that do come in and bull rush their way past the security, whose orders are to stand down if there's a confrontation. You know, they're not going to confront somebody. But anyway, I'm sorry for getting off track, but this is about bringing the management back to a point where there isn't a problem.
And except for Charles's point that, I mean, I think is completely on point, that there needs to be somebody there who is like the tenants. There needs to be, I mean, if they could find a black property manager to put in there, I think it would be much more successful than who they have there now. And I think, I agree with what you said in terms of, you know, like with like, and that is something that we lack, and I think would be very helpful.
And the training too.
Yes, yeah.
John, do we have, there's no longer a tree line in the neighborhood office, is that right?
The other Wexford property that Alder Skidmore was referring to, we had one and they were removed after, I don't recall how many years, several years.
The calls got
After
down.
calls went down,
Mhm.
the
Calls went down.
neighborhood was open.
Right now, Officer Nick Cleary is the neighborhood liaison, so he spends a lot of time at the Tree Lane Family Apartments, and he gathers a lot of statistics and is a PD representative. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he is a representative, field representative, so to speak. Captain Patton and Lieutenant Hanson spend a lot of time there as well.
Right, a lot of neighborhoods will have a liaison, but it's not like a full-time neighborhood officer that other neighborhoods may have, so it's very different.
CPT.
It's a CPT officer or maybe even a patrol officer, right?
Do you have any other questions about forward facing? Before we leave the topic, we did invite the TE person here to talk to us about parking in streets, and as long as you're here, can you give us a little update on, I know there was a huge parking problem in the area, residents couldn't park because people were,
I'm not aware of that issue, but there's no parking in Mineral Point, well past the driveway to this Tree Lane site, so I'm not sure what the issue is, if people are parking in no parking zone, or I'm not sure what the issue is. Paul, do you?
Yes, I can address that, and I did pass that on to engineering and to PD, and I talked to Captain Patton about it and others. Yes, you are correct. There are signs that go up quite a ways past the driveway, and they're routinely ignored. Now the SOP for that area is that if parking enforcement comes on trees that are, or cars that are illegally parked on tree lane, they're ticketed immediately. I don't think they're towing yet. And that MPI, the private security company, is monitoring the lot a little better, but there's still problems with that. People parking illegally, parking in the fire zones. But the parking on Tree Lane is what's gathering interest, because a number of cars were ordered to leave the lot because they were illegally parked when they got the proper permitting system. Then they moved on to Tree Lane.
When you say the lot, do you mean the one that
The one that
is the residence parking
Yes.
lot? Thank you.
And that they have stickers that they put on that indicate that you can't be here, and if you don't move, you're going to get towed.
I see.
For a while, then they moved them to the mall across the street until the mall told them, no, you can't park here either. And then now they're ferrying on Tree Lane. There's at least one van that there's a couple of people living in that the captain's aware of.
So are guests permitted to park in the lot then? Are there guest spots, or are they?
Yes, they have a permit system, as I understand, where there's one permit issued per residence, I believe.
Okay.
And then there are guests as well.
Okay.
so there is adequate parking for all the people in that building?
I can't speak to that.
I believe that, so there's no charge for parking.
Okay.
And parking permits are issued upon request. I think they are getting to the point where there are requests for more parking than they have spaces to accommodate.
So then, what does a person do if they have a car and they live in a building and they can't park in their lot because there isn't room? Is that on somebody's radar? Because, if I lived there and, I said, why was it two-car family? Well, then I can't park in the street, and I can't park in the mall. And where do I park? okay, but where do I legally park? I mean, is there somewhere, is that somebody talking about that? Because I'm thinking that.
Yes, there is a discussion because there are residents that are parking on Tree Lane
Yeah.
legally
Mhm.
further up, that would be further to the north,
Okay.
on Tree Lane.
So there is some legal spot that could be, and is there consideration for actually making more spots legal on the street near that building, or?
You would
is
have
that-
to see what, the width of the street is there. There's bike lanes there, which I'm not sure what that gives us with the, if we have enough width to put parking there.
Yeah.
It's something that we could consider, if that's possible, but I'm guessing the width isn't there to have the parking, else it would be there.
For the record, I've asked traffic engineering again to look at that, and Yang hasn't gotten back to me.
About the parking in particular, or the crossing of the path?
Parking, crossing, lighting, traffic calming, a variety of things.
Okay, I can address a few of those. So the lighting, we sent our shop out there to replace the lights that were out. We had a couple complaints. We pointed out that some of the lights were out. We went out there and they should be replaced. The crossing, we have a plan in place in the spring to put signage up for that crossing and a big crosswalk there. As for the traffic calming on Tree Lane, we are kind of limited in our options. We can't do speed humps or speed tables. We reached out to fire and they said because it's an important fire route that they wouldn't allow that there. So we're looking into other options, but we're limited, I guess, without being able to do speed tables on what we can do for traffic calming. I mean, we can look into putting up a driver feedback board, which will post a speed limit of people when they go by. We're looking into that, and possibly a flashing beacon at that crossing. But those have to go through the process. We have a lot of requests to do those things, but we rank them, according to our process, but it has been noted.
All right, anything else? Any further discussion or anything else? If not, then we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thanks very much for coming and answering questions that we had, and we'll look forward to this. Okay. Now, item number 2.